Every time you walk into your workplace, there's this kind of invisible shield of rules that's designed to protect you. But have you ever wondered where those rules came from? Or who's actually responsible for making sure they're followed? Well, we're about to dive into the surprisingly interesting story of our workplace safety laws. So, let's just start with the biggest question right off the bat. Who is really responsible for keeping you safe at work? Is it you, your manager, or is it someone else entirely? I think the answer is gonna surprise you. To really get why these laws are so incredibly important, we first have to face a pretty tough fact, and that's the reality of the risks that people face on the job every single day. Over 100,000. Just let that number sink in. That's how many workplace accidents can happen in just 1 year. It's so easy to see that as just a statistic, right? But every single one of those numbers is a real person with a family whose life got completely turned upside down by something that happened at work. That staggering number is the very reason Occupational Safety and Health, or OSH, legislation even exists. It represents this huge shift in thinking, from just accepting that work is risky to actively trying to stop accidents from happening in the first place. So, how did society first try to tackle this problem? Well, the earliest approach wasn't about prevention at all. It was actually a legal tool that was designed for something totally different: getting paid after you got hurt. It's called the law of tort. Okay, that sounds really formal and legally, but here's what it means in simple terms. A tort is basically when someone's action, or maybe their inaction, causes you harm, and the law says you can sue them for damages. Think of it as a way to get compensation, but only after the bad thing has already happened. And this is a really key difference to understand. A tort is what we call a civil wrong. It's a dispute between two people or two companies. A crime, on the other hand, is a criminal wrong. That's an offense against society as a whole, and the government gets involved. In the early days of workplace injuries, we were pretty much only dealing with civil wrongs. But here's the huge, glaring flaw in that whole system. It's completely reactive. Tort law only kicks in after someone has already been injured. Sure, it can offer money for the harm done, but it does absolutely nothing to prevent that harm from happening to begin with. And preventing the accident? Well, that's kind of the whole point, isn't it? This major weakness led to a massive shift in how we thought about safety. People realized that just waiting for injuries to happen and then having people sue, well, that wasn't a very good or very ethical system. And this realization led to the rise of modern OSH legislation. It forced society to ask a really critical question. Is just reacting to accidents ever really enough? And the answer, pretty clearly, was no. A check in the mail doesn't fix a permanent injury. The entire focus had to change. And so the whole legal framework evolved. We moved away from that reactive system of just dealing with individual harm, case by case, and we moved toward a proactive system of creating society-wide rules, legislation that would apply to every workplace all the time. Suddenly, the goal became crystal clear. The entire purpose of this new way of thinking was to shift the focus from reaction to prevention. It was all about building a system that could stop the accident before it ever happened. So what does this prevention-focused system actually look like in practice? It all comes down to one powerful central legal idea: a fundamental duty of care. This is really the heart and soul of modern workplace safety law. And this brings us right back to the question we started with. The law today is completely unambiguous about this. It places a direct legal responsibility squarely on the shoulders of the employer to protect their people. So what does this duty of care actually require an employer to do? Well, it boils down to 4 key pillars. First, provide a safe place to work. That means the building, the floor, the air, it all has to be free from known hazards. Second, provide safe equipment. The tools you use have to work properly and be well maintained. Third, provide safe systems of work. The actual procedures you follow have to be designed with safety built in. And finally, provide proper training and supervision to make sure everyone knows how to do their job safely. Now, it is so important to understand that this is not just a list of friendly suggestions. These duties are not optional. They are legally binding requirements, and employers who fail to meet them can face some very serious consequences. So here's the crucial takeaway from all this. Modern OSH legislation is so much more than just a rulebook. It's a proactive framework that puts the responsibility squarely on the employer and gives them a clear set of duties,
all for one single purpose: to prevent harm before it ever has a chance to happen.
And that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. If this whole legal framework for prevention exists, why do tens of thousands of accidents still happen every single year? That gap between the rules on paper and the reality of the workplace, that's something worth thinking about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.